We'll have to hold those.
Okay, we'll need a motion to hold. Correct?
Marshall motions to hold the approval of minutes for June 7th, 2022.
Guzekowski will second.
Need a date certain on that, Melissa, or not? You need a date on that? Hold the, no? Right. Okay. Anything critical on there, Andrew? Okay.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Okay, item 4 is consideration of a resolution of commendation to Gary L. Hildebrandt, a retiring firefighter. Catherine, if you would please read that in the record.
Certainly. Resolution of commendation to Gary L. Hildebrandt. Whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt was appointed a firefighter on October 30th, 2020, and whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt retired from his position as firefighter effective May 31st, 2022, after 21 years and 7 months of dedicated full-time service to the City of Oak Creek Fire Department, and whereas during his years of service, Gary L. Hildebrandt has performed his duties admirably, looking out for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Oak Creek. And whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt responded to many major alarms, utilizing his skills in firefighting and rescue with dedication and without hesitation. And whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt has been an emergency medical technician in the state of Wisconsin and has cared for thousands of citizens who were sick or injured, always delivering caring and skilled emergency care to them. And whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt conducted many tours and participated in fire prevention activities for the children of Oak Creek during his career. And whereas Gary L. Hildebrandt was a member of the department's fire investigation unit responsible for investigating cause, origin, and circumstances of fires within the community. And now therefore be it resolved that the city's best wishes for good health and happiness be extended to Gary L. Hildebrandt and his family in his retirement years. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting and that the city clerk is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to Gary L. Hildebrandt, passed and adopted this 21st day of June 2022.
Thank you, Catherine. Before we go any further, I'd like to invite Chief Kresick up. Say a few words on Gary's behalf.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I just want to briefly recognize Gary's career with the Oak Creek Fire Department. As the resolution stated, he spent nearly 22 years serving the community as a firefighter through public education delivery, and maybe most notably as his time as one of our fire investigators. I had the opportunity to serve with Gary when I was a battalion chief. Gary was an expert storyteller, both fire service stories and from his time in the Army. He will be missed in the organization, and we certainly wish him and his family the best as he starts his retirement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Council members, any words for Gary? Nothing? Well, if you've ever been in an Oak Creek event, I'm sure you would recognize Gary. Gary was very active with Local 1848 and coming out and doing all the fire activities. If you were in the schools, he was part of the Fire Prevention Week activities. Looking out there, we have a lot of school-aged participants tonight, so I'm sure you would recognize this individual if he came forward. Gary gave us 22 years of service. We really appreciate that. He's touched countless lives here and helped us out in ways we may never know. So on behalf of myself, the Common Council, and the citizens of Oak Creek, I want to wish Gary and his family a very happy and long retirement. So motion on 4, please.
They'll move to approve resolution 12336-062122, a resolution of commendation to Gary L. Hildebrandt, retiring firefighter.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
And next, item 5, we have a short presentation by the Oak Creek High School Roundtable Robotics team. Come on up. Come up to the podium. You guys are going to be on mic. We're going to need your names. We don't need the addresses for the record. All right? Make this all formal on you. Hold that down.
There we go.
Hi, my name is AJ Golombieski.
I'm Eli Jones. I'm a senior. My name is Carter Gustafson.
Okay. Feel free to start your presentation for us.
Coming to you live from the Zoomed America corporate headquarters in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. It's AJ on the Rapid Reacts podcast with Carter and Eli. FRC, the biggest FLL regional in the state. FBLA Workshop, FarmBot, ParadeBot, MechLab, Steam Fair, and getting recognized by Kevin Scott, the CTO of Microsoft. What has this team not done? All the way from Oak Creek, Wisconsin, we have the amazing Roundtable Robotics team, number 1792, here today on the Rapid Reacts podcast.
Now, before we start, I think we should say what we always say at the start of our meetings.
Safety is number one. We are one team. We seek having fun over being right. We are respectful. We are always learning. We are helpful. We work hard. We are RTR. Wow, that's so inspirational. Now, I'm assuming those are your team's core values.
Yeah, they've been integrating our team's meetings for the past 7 years. We recite these values at the beginning of every meeting.
Yeah, they have a lot of value on our team. Another thing that has a lot of value is being here on Rapid Reacts podcast to talk about our amazing achievements over these past 3 years.
No problem. We were impressed to hear about your team's achievements. But before we get into that, I have to ask you, why Roundtable Robotics?
The story behind that is pretty simple. Our school's mascot is a knight, and we seek to include everyone at the table equally. So, Roundtable Robotics.
Wow, how riveting. Now, I heard you guys have diversified in the past year, but could you tell the listeners exactly how?
Yeah, like our name suggests, we seek to include everyone equally, which is why we enacted our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. This makes sure that all members on our team understand the importance of including everyone equally and has a desire to invite new members to our team.
These new members help to increase our diversity, resulting in over half of our team being represented in our DEI initiative. We believe in inclusion, and because of this, we've had amazing new ideas.
Could you elaborate on what those ideas might have been?
It started in past years with our super duper sponsorship. We help businesses support new teams across the country, funding over
$36,000.
We went to our sponsors and encouraged them to financially assist new teams. Through this, 12 FLL and FRC teams were assisted. And this year, we looked at how to reach more communities in a different way.
So we made a major impact. As part of our super sponsorship, we connected not only FIRST students, but students from 21 different schools through FBLA.
Whoa, back up. Could you explain a little bit more about what FBLA is?
FBLA stands for the Future Business Leaders of America, and is the largest student career business organization in the world.
So we hosted a workshop at the FBLA Regional Leadership Conference at Oak Creek High School called STEM, Robotics, and Business, How to Engage Within Your School Network. This event had over
601 members from 21 different schools.
2 students from each of the 21 schools came to our workshop to learn more, and they left with information on how to get more involved with their local FIRST teams.
Now, I may be wrong, but didn't the RTR business team create a near-field communication card that allowed the students to take the info you shared back to their schools in an easy and accessible manner?
Yeah, we did.
Those are super cool.
Yeah, they really are a unique thing. Now, obviously, you grew first to this event, but if I'm looking at the source correctly, it says that the Oak Creek FLO regional hosted by RTR is the biggest regional in the state.
In
2021, 336 participants, 24 teams, and 75 volunteers.
Our team organized this whole event, and we've hosted the event 5 times now. And every year, we have continued to grow STEM in our local community.
Through this, we've mentored 13 FLL Explore teams in our school district,
5 FLL middle school teams for City Shaper,
4 additional teams in the inner city Milwaukee public school system,
and 2 community teams for private schools who don't offer STEM classes. Through mentoring both FLL Explore and FLL Challenge, we ensure students continue to learn more about STEM and are encouraged to join our team in the future, continuing our mission of sustainability.
Wow, hosting an event that big must have been difficult, and it is definitely no small feat. We heard that your team has started a new project to increase your team's knowledge in STEM careers, the Festo Mech Lab.
This year, our team started taking a certification called the NC3 Festo Introduction to Mechatronics.
This is an industry-recognized certification that allows our team to understand real-world applications in advanced manufacturing.
And your team didn't just stop there. You expanded your reach to include 2 6th and 7th grade FLL Girl Scout teams. This certification uses the same technology found in factories all over the world, so the participants can learn more about the real-life applications of STEM.
I agree.
I second.
Wow, hosting an FLO regional and an FBLA workshop, Was your team not done?
You know, there's actually a lot. Every year we set expectations that surpass our previous years. This promotes creativity with motivation to improve. We do this through the Oak Creek High School STEM Club.
The club houses the RTR team and all of our other projects like Trauma Kit, Farm Bot, National Night Out, and Parade Bot, ensuring that all members of our team can participate at a level they're comfortable at during season and off season too.
And one event that's part of the STEM Club is the STEAM Fair?
Yes, in 2019, we created the Oak Creek STEAM Fair. Event is run district-wide as both a STEM fair and an art fair. We're even able to host it virtually during COVID, awarding a total of
$17,500.
in scholarships over 3 years.
Wow, this first impact is incredible, but how are you spreading the word?
This month alone, we reached
Over 2,000 people on YouTube.
Through our weekly and announcement videos. We also incorporated social media outreach by
attempting to achieve our marketing goal of
Doubling our social media presence.
on Instagram,
Facebook
LinkedIn,
and YouTube.
What we have done is impressive, but we are still looking for ways to grow and expand
By continuing our mission of not only improving first in our local community,
But the world.
Thank you.
It was very impressive and informative.
Thank you.
Big fan of the STEM programs going on here, in Oak Creek. And I mean, you're a leader in southeastern Wisconsin. You guys have done amazing things. And what have you been around, about 6 years?
7.
Yeah, about 6, 7. So you guys have come leaps and bounds. How many?
7.
8 years.
8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds off a little bit.
We're 8 now. We completed that season, we're 8 now.
But I like the values you set forward, the equity, inclusion, and you know, this is really about the core values of what you said, and that was really safety, having fun, and learning. But you're really setting a path for all these individuals, not only yourself, but those behind you for this STEM stuff, and it's going to run the world. It truly is going to change and run the world. So kudos to you and your program. Anyone? Rich, anything? Lisa?
No, I just appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you. I know it's a big audience and you're being recorded for posterity.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys being here. Your efforts are pretty impressive, so thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for coming out, guys, and thanks for the information you shared with me in the lobby earlier. Bryce, thank you.
So, again, very impressed. You guys actually really shocked me when, you know, you were so quiet to introduce yourselves, and then all of a sudden, we got the stage show. But again, I think our future looks very bright when I see individuals like you. I'm very proud that you're in our community and you're helping foster these values going forward. It really does mean a lot, because sometimes when you're a younger person, older people tend to go, "We never did that." You know? But you guys are really, really setting yourselves up for a lot of future success going forward. This stuff's going to stay with you forever. So kudos. And to you leaders out there that put the time and effort in to mentor these young people, thank you very much. So we appreciate that from all of you, without a doubt. Oak Creek's in good hands. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We're getting to something really fun for some. Max is smiling. Item 6 is consideration of an ordinance fixing the salary and wage ranges, salaries, wages, and allowances of certain full-time and part-time labor associates or of Wisconsin or law and their non-represented positions for the year 2022. So, Max?
You kick it off, Max?
I'm sorry, was I going to Andrew first?
That's okay. No, I just want to say a few words about this group and turn it over to Matt and Max. We're kind of going to triple team this conversation tonight. This is just the continuation of the strategy and thought process that we brought to you with a few other groups. But this DPW group has always been a group that's dear to me. 3 communities I've worked at, what I've noticed is DPW handles everything else. Right? We haven't yet got a police officer to go out and pick up a dead deer, or, you know, I certainly haven't been in a plow truck in my career using it. They're really the unsung heroes. They don't get a lot of the accolades that, you know, some of the other groups in the city do, who are very visible out in the community. But they do a lot of work, and they do a lot of hard work, and particularly this community, you know, our folks, our residents, our business owners, our visitors really don't know how much we spoil them with our public works services here. Seen a lot of improvement, a lot of culture shift in my 6 years here out at that group, and I see really good things coming out of Matt's leadership and what that can bring to this group. But what we're really trying to do tonight, and I know Max will cover this in full, you know, I really noticed that we were creating jobs at DPW and we weren't creating careers. And this strategy is laden with an opportunity for folks to come into our organization, demonstrate their skills, knowledge and abilities, and really be able to progress. As you know, we have kind of 3 traditional spots for our skilled folks. That is laborer, driver, equipment operator 1, and equipment operator 2. Those aren't very prominent titles, so you'll see that we're changing those up too and being a little more in line with modern nomenclature. But what we saw was we had quotas, if you will, at equipment 2. We had quota of number of bodies at equipment 1. And the folks coming in as laborer drivers, as we presently call them, had nowhere to go upward, even though they were a lot of times using the same equipment, just as proficient. They had nowhere to go until somebody retired, passed away, or was otherwise no longer with the city. So we're trying to change that on its head. We have a really strong group out there of experienced mentors and crew leaders, and we really have a new group, younger group, that are very eager and very dedicated and loyal to the city and the department. So obviously we're talking about compensation, but I thought I wanted to just provide that, you know, this is really more about career building and retention as it is as much as it is, you know, taking a leap forward, because as you see, entry level wages here again are, you know, almost embarrassingly low. So with that, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to Max to go through a brief presentation, and I'll probably chime in again later, but.
So on this first slide, you'll see the Department of Public Works and its existing wage rates for both. We've kind of classified them in 2 categories: our laborer and operator positions. So those are the 3 positions, skilled positions that Andrew mentioned briefly. You can see what the hourly rates currently are. You know, the one thing really for the Common Council to understand, this is one of the few groups in the city. There isn't a wage range. There's a fixed rate currently, and this is what it is. So, you know, if you start out working in Department of Public Works as a laborer driver, currently making $19.13, but then you see a significant increase once you get to operator 1 and then operator 2. So operator 1 up to $25.87, and then $31.26. And, you know, as we've talked about in previous comp analysis, is that, you know, the expectations for compensation and benefits change over time, and, you know, being, you know, 3 levels with significant increases and very small opportunities to progress unless someone separates or someone leaves is just not as attractive as it used to be. You know, people are looking for more opportunities for growth earlier in their careers, and some just not willing to stick it out to try and progress to that next rate. And then at the bottom, you can see the rates for all of the other existing staff, except the Director of Public Works. And that's just more for the Common Council's awareness. You can see anything from the Assistant Director, ranging from about $37 to $41. And then you can see some of our regular laborers have a starting rate as low as about $12, which certainly creates challenges when, you know, we're trying to recruit seasonal positions at 14. So we're trying to recruit seasonals at higher rates than some of the regular laborers. So when we did our compensation analysis, we looked at peers in both Milwaukee County. We also included some peers outside Milwaukee County, so Caledonia, Muskego, as well as the West Bend Classification and Compensation Study. So a little bit broader network here. What you see is a minimum rate, a mid rate, and a max rate. And really for our purposes, I would say the minimum rate is probably akin most to what we have as our laborer driver position currently. The mid rate, similar to the equipment operator 1, and then the max rate, the equipment operator 2. You know, what's really challenging about this type of analysis is that every community does it different. Some just have one position title with a wide range and they progress through. Others have different position titles, and, you know, when we were trying to sort through the data, really trying to get a apples to apples comparison was challenging, but we did eventually get there. And what you'll see is that the average hourly rate is about $22.18 amongst that peer group. The mid rate at $27.36, and then $32.54. So what you'll see on the bottom table is where Oak Creek currently stands. And again, the min rate, the labor driver, we're at $19.13. So we're about $3 or 14% below the minimum of the average. And then you'll see that, and we're the lowest of all the peer group too. Everyone else is over $20. Mid rate at $25.84 or 87, and then $31.26. So about $1.50, $1.25 under, about 4 or 5%. So, you know, we're just not keeping up on that starting rate. But, you know, where our current operator 1s and 2s are at, it's fairly competitive in the market. But again, we still want to make some minor adjustments there, try and get better aligned with where the marketplace is at. So, as Andrew mentioned in his introduction, really our recommendation is a little bit different than some of the past compensation analysis. First, we really wanted to rebrand that DPW labor operator title, really better align with what we're seeing in the public sector for similar type jobs. So we do have a proposal to adjust those titles, as well as create ranges for the new positions within that structure. And it's really twofold. So one, it's going to give management the flexibility to progress employees through the wage range as employees acquire new knowledge, skills, and abilities. So that's really one of the challenges we have here with just having a fixed amount per position, is that we could have a laborer driver who's operating heavy equipment potentially and not earning as much as someone who might be in an equipment operator 1 or 2 position who's not. So, you know, we're trying to create a pathway that as an employee earns or learns more or gains more knowledge, learns more skills and abilities, that they can progress and pay as well. DPW management will be working on this assessment center process, so we don't have that ironed out today, but that will be presented to Personnel and Finance Committee at a later date. And then for the employee, it better defines that career path for them. So as Andrew mentioned, with the current structure, we just have the 3 positions and you have to wait for a vacancy, trying to allow it so that we can grow those high performers within our organization over time. And now I'll turn it over to our interim director, Matt Trebetowski, and provide a little bit more details on kind of how we came to this.
Yeah. See if it comes on here. Is it on? All right. Yeah, I think I'll just kind of add a little bit to what both Andrew and Max have stated, but I think currently under the pay structure with just the 3 different positions, there's really that limited opportunity for advancement with our employees. And really those rates have such large gaps between them. You know, we have about a 35% increase between our laborer driver to go to the operator 1 and another 21% to go from operator 1 to an operator 2. So while that's great when that opportunity finally comes, if you're the person to get that position, it makes it difficult for those who are around for an extended period of time. When we have a quota system in place for those positions, that you can't get to them until, as Andrew alluded to, until someone retires or leaves the organization.
Also, man, on that point too, and think of this, you're also vying against 8 or 10 other people for that chance once every few years when it when it comes open. So, I mean, that's no shoe in by any means. And you know, you're going to have to perform, of course, to get that promotion, but that leaves a lot of very high performing folks, you know, outside looking in as well. So.
Correct. And also you could be there up to, and we have a few people going on 5 years that, you know, are kind of teetering on that edge of, do I stick around here or are there better opportunities elsewhere? But, you know, someone could walk in the door tomorrow and make the same rate as that they've been making, and they've been with the organization for 5 years, obviously acquiring a lot more experience and skills and training throughout that period of time. So moving forward with the proposed position and ranges that we'll get into, you know, will allow for a better career progression as we do put forth that assessment center and offer that defined path and really a reason for the employees to stay and to potentially make a career here if they choose to. So really, I think what we've got, and I think Max, you were going to cover, should be a lot more equitable for all of the employees. Not just our ones who have been fortunate to be here a while and are in the top echelon of our positions, we'll call it. But it'll allow us the ability to retain those good employees that have been with us for quite a period of time, but just haven't had the opportunity to advance quite yet.
Thanks, Matt. And then lastly, there were some other personnel out at the Public Works that we also wanted to take a look at. Didn't do as much as robust of a compensation analysis, but there were some key principles we wanted to make sure that we hit on. One, just to alleviate some compression amongst management and frontline personnel. So, you know, compression is an issue that you often see either with union management relationships or historic union management relationships, and we're starting to experience that here. Our Personnel and Finance Committee, we did address wage compression with our police and fire union management command staff, and we're looking to do very similarly with our Department of Public Works staff. And then lastly, ensure that all of our regular part-time employees earn a minimum of $16 an hour. So these aren't the seasonals, these are our regular part-time employees. And the fact that, you know, we're trying to recruit seasonal positions at about $14 plus, which is higher than some of those regular part-time were. Certainly want to put them closer towards a living wage. So what you'll see here are three tables. These are the proposed positions as well as rates. So you'll see at the top, the three positions are Public Works Technician, which would replace the laborer driver. And then the Public Works Advanced Technician would replace the Operator 1. And the Public Works Specialist would replace the Equipment Operator 2. And then you'll see there are ranges that are defined in there. So the minimum starting rate for a Public Works Technician would be $21.61. And they can go up to about $24.32. That Equipment Operator 1 formerly would be the Advanced Technician, minimum starting rate of $25.29. And then you can see that maximum rate of $29.39. And then lastly, the Equipment Operator 2 would be rebranded as the Public Works Specialist, minimum rate of $30.57 up to $31.73. The second table kind of shows you the current rate of where those former titles are, what we're proposing, and then what we anticipate their wage rate would be in 2023. Given the Common Council affords in the budget a 2.5% cost of living adjustment. So you'll see that for that Public Works Technician, we would get over $22 and shortly within about the next 6 months, and then $26, just under $27 for the Advanced Technician, and $32.50 for the Specialist. And then you can see what that average increase is. And you can see, you know, the average increase is pretty significant for those entry-level positions, given that we're just so low on the market. But when we look at how these new wage rates would look in the market, we're still 2.5% below what that average is. There was one or two communities that were starting at $24 plus that kind of skewed the lower end of the market, but once we're able to implement the 2023 rates, we'll be much better, much closer to that market.
Just to, if you want to back up quick, to kind of nutshell this, we mentioned, really what we're talking about here is the ability for a public works technician and advanced technician. We're blending those two positions essentially, and you demonstrate the abilities through the assessment center, which will stand up. Those people, everybody can move from currently if this goes forward, 2162 all the way up to 2939. So there's no quota. Those people have an $8 per hour spread that they can gain with their demonstrated abilities. Where we do maintain the quota is public works specialists. Public works specialists are really crew leader type people, and of course, everybody doesn't need to get to crew leader, or all chiefs and no Indians, so to speak. So, but there is still a almost $2.50 spread between a crew leader and those who he or she is leading in the field. So we think that was appropriate. But as Max had mentioned, we're still a little bit below the market at 2.5. He mentioned there was a couple communities that were in the $24 range, which really skewed those numbers. But B, as he also mentioned earlier, we did not go in with a scalpel and analyze everybody, all of these communities and what their assessment centers are and how people advance. There's certain of these communities that don't have any advancement. They have titles, and you gain a different title, you gain a different pay scale, or you hire in from outside at a different title. And, there isn't necessarily what we would like to stand up. We know that. But there's also communities in this study that are completely sophisticated, and we'll probably borrow from their logic and their strategy and their methods for advancing these folks through the department. But the way we looked at this, we looked at labor rates, right? So we looked at the spread of labor. We looked at what it was all the way up to the crew leader positions, or the highest level in these other organizations, and we arrived at that 2162 to 29 whatever for everybody but those crew leads. As you see, where we started from, we were really low, entry level, and then it got a little better as we progressed through our equipment 1 and equipment 2. But we certainly wanted to address and get everybody closer to where we thought folks needed to be, and where the study yielded that we need to get to.
And on this next slide, I just want to show those other DPW personnel that we did take a look at, what their proposed rates would be for the committee. So you can see, anywhere ranging increases from about 8% down to about 2.5%, 3%. So again, really the two factors here are trying to alleviate some compression between management and frontline staff, and then trying to ensure that all of our regular part-time individuals are earning $16 an hour.
Max, the
Yes.
question, I was looking at this, I just noticed, in the table middle of page 5, relative to the table at the bottom of the page, there's a few proposed wage rate adjustments as of 1/1/23 that are higher than the max rate. Will those be adjusted with the wage ordinance at the end of the year then?
Yes.
Okay.
And just looking at how does this layer into our 2023 budget? So our projected allowable increase is about $1 million. If we were to do a cost of living adjustment of 2.5% for all city employees, about $580,000. And then all of the previously approved market adjustments, about $173,000. It does seem a little low, but we also decided to kind of spread out the dispatch comp analysis and fund that over a 2-year period. We used some surplus funds we talked about at our first compensation analysis last month. And then you can see the market adjustments for our DPW staff, about $164,000. So what would be remaining at the start of our budget is about $80,000.
this does provide us some capacity to move folks in the progression as we stand up that assessment center and all the personnel and finance committee members are on board with those criteria. Certainly, to just call it out right now, longevity has nothing to do with advancing through the progression. It's demonstrated abilities on pieces of equipment, leadership, attitude, positive performance reviews overall, successive positive performance reviews. So this is not by any means going to resemble a step system. There just happens to be steps that are tied to actual data and performance metrics. We did allow, we kind of took a little bit of a snapshot of, okay, given the folks that we have out there right now and their experience, we have a budget in that 163 to say, hey, there's probably 5 people at that step or 4 people at this step. So we do have some ability, not just to stand up the logic and the method of the progression, but as soon as we stand that process up, actually start working people into it. We have a budget to do that in that allowable market adjustment as well. So.
With that, the Personnel and Finance Committee did recommend the Common Council approve ordinance number 3046, which would fix the salaries, wage ranges, wages, and allowances for certain full and part-time Labor Association Wisconsin and non-represented positions for 2022. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions Common Council may have.
All right, thank you, Max. Questions, comments? Anything?
Just a comment, because
Go ahead.
you three, only Steve and I were privy to the conversation last week on the personnel committee meeting. So obviously an evolution in the sort of we've had a couple of these already, wage studies done with the admin team. We've had the dispatch center go through a wage adjustment already, and this is an evolutionary process in terms of looking at the DPW, where obviously they were, this is probably at least the third wage adjustment we've done since the Act 10 days and the elimination of the STEP program. I know that caused a lot of angst and pain in that organization, and we've evolved and adjusted over time and looking at the continuity in that particular organization in terms of creating careers and making it worth folks' time to actually stay there, learn some skills and be added to the city. So I think this is a great step in terms of providing some continuity and some financial gain for the commitment they have, the service they provide to the city.
Chris, anything?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad you took this on, and it's long overdue. I think when we look at just the where we are and where we need to go, and I think it allows us to really gives us the opportunity to help engage the employees along the way, and give them the opportunity to see which path they want to take. So I'm very appreciative of this. Thank you.
I had the opportunity to go and visit with Matt at the DPW the other day and kind of knew this was coming. And one of the things that was said that was so striking is that our DPW is really the face of our community. They're out there all the time. So this is a good move for us.
Rich, anything?
Just a comment that we've been discussing throughout our personnel and finance meetings. This is today's world. This is the marketplace, with being able to compensate and keep valued employees. So this was a necessary step. The question that I have, and I don't know that I completely understand this because I haven't been around with the cost of living adjustments that we're forecasting for 2023. I mean, is 2.5, is that a realistic figure? Given that, isn't it typically or somehow based on CPI?
So
we wish this year.
So the cost of living adjustments are just amounts that, for non-represented employees would be decided by management and then incorporated into the budget, and then whatever the Common Council could approve. But it's really based off our ability to what we can afford. So, municipalities in Wisconsin, we have a lot of constraints on our revenues, and we operate under levy limits, which limit our property taxes, our largest revenue source, to net new construction, which is growth in the community. You know, Oak Creek's been blessed with very high net new construction relative to the rest of the state. You know, we've had a year of over 4%, 3%. Last year was 2.7%. I think we're getting closer to 2.3%, but we can't afford to do much more than 2.5%.
Okay, and was my
given the
concern.
constraints that the state levies on us.
Okay.
So, ultimately, we would love to try and match inflation as much as possible, but it's just not a reality in the municipal finance environment we operate in.
Number one, we, for the past 6 years, have given everybody the same cost of living adjustment, essentially matching the bargain wages with the police and fire units. Next year, our police and fire contracts are at a 1% split. So, effectively 2%, but with a little weight. And we don't think that this time that we're going to be able to hold the rest of the non-represented workforce to the 1-1 split. So we left a little bit in there. Secondly, we had a lot of discussion about, maybe we just need to pull back and say, hey, let's go to like 4% and just, improve organization wide. But that then didn't leave money left over to surgically address these glaring issues. And we would have just been kicking and exacerbating the problem down the road on some of these, because as you can see, 4% would do nothing to get us in line in any of the analyses we brought forward. The custodians were 27% low to the market. So, what was 4% going to do to really clean up the problem as opposed to just furthering the problem proportionately down the road? So, we hope we can afford a 2.5 for everyone. But that's kind of the logic and the thought process that went into that, why we went with these more surgical kind of assessments and up market adjustments than a higher across the board for everyone.
And I appreciate that clarification. I know that there was discussions that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, when CPI was less than 1%, that was the increase that was then given to the employees, or the non-repped employees. Is that correct? For the most part?
CPI's been negative
right
before, in a year where, you're sitting with the meet and confer group, the law group, and you're at zero and you can't do much more because of the law. But again, we've matched across the board COLAs for everybody represented and non-represented the past 5 or 6 years. We may deviate a little bit from that, but we don't know exactly all the other budget pieces yet either. We do know WRS is going up again to the tune of, over $130,000, we'll say. So we have to factor in all of these, but we also know there's revenue adjustments that can be made, obviously, with the interest rates where they are. That means we're going to make more on our investments as well. So we can kind of strategize. But again, it goes back to that multi-year budget process and outlook. And we wouldn't be able to do any of this if we didn't have the debt levy reduction strategy, if we didn't solve for the last year for this year's additional kind of cut to our general transportation aids. We've solved for those other things that we could to put us in a position to even make these adjustments. And then, of course, our growth, right? Everybody's not enjoying this flexibility in their annual budgets. But this flexibility, as Max put forward, that long-term analysis on, net new construction requirements just to hit a good cost of living for our workforce as our wages grow. And that's not sustainable. So we got to even think more longer term than, 3 and 5 years down the road. We really got to take that 10-year outlook with our budgeting practices.
And I, again, appreciate that clarification. Now I understand that CPI doesn't dictate what the wage rates are going to be. We just, use them as a tool, I guess, of comparison to what would be fair or not. So, okay, I'm okay with the explanations, and thank you.
Steve, anything?
No, I was involved in the meeting last week, so I'm okay with everything. So, yeah. And I understand why we're doing it and how we're doing it, so I'm good with it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I, for one, I'm really glad to see this. I was not a fan of the old system. It provided no upward mobility for anybody coming into our organization at all. It pigeonholed people and it didn't work. And contrary to popular belief, you know, sometimes the public says, oh, they're not doing their jobs. These are their careers. Our DPW takes great pride in what they do at all levels. And, you know, people always look at it as a job. It's actually their chosen career. They should be able to, you know, expand that career and have a family supporting job out of it. And, you know, it was possible to come into this organization and sit for 15, 20 years at that low rate. No one can raise a family on that. You just can't. So I, for one, I know it doesn't correct everything, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. And I don't look at it as an expense. I look at it as an investment. An investment in our greatest asset, and Lisa said it. You guys are really ambassadors to the city. You're out there all the time. And I can tell you, the majority of my calls come in concerning issues people have with DPW things. And they're not seriously things that went wrong at DPW. It's just, when you come in from my branches, just today, it was my branches and garbage truck was leaking or something. It's goofy, but they deal with the public a lot, you know, on the same level as police and fire do. So I'm glad to see it and fully support it. So nice job, everyone. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, it'd be a motion on 6, as far as we are.
I'll move to approve ordinance 3046, fixing the salary and wage ranges, salary, wages, and allowances of certain full-time and part-time labor association of Wisconsin and non-represented positions for the year 2022.
Guzekowski, will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
And item 7 is consideration of a motion with the Park and Recreation Commission and select Edgewater Resources to create a study and plan of the redevelopment of the public recreation space for the city of Oak Creek, North Bluff, in the amount not to exceed $85,000. It's like Doug's taking it.
Sure. So if you all think back to the evolution of how Lake Vista developed, and there was a long process, granted, but there was a plan, there was public investment, there was preservation of the critical areas for open space, which was followed by the private investment. And if you go out there today, you'll see lots of activity, and in a few weeks' time, you'll see buildings started to rise up out of the ground. That process, what we went through is kind of established the playbook for how we're approaching what we call the North Bluff. Right now, really imaginative, right? North Bluff, South Bluff. But it really is, if you think about the things that this council has already done in terms of acquiring the 30 acres along the lakefront, so that's public space forever. Working with the property owner to develop a plan to clean up their properties, specifically Peter Cooper, and now working with some of the other intervening property owners there. That's exactly what happened with the South Bluff. Making those bold investment choices to acquire the Peter Cooper property in anticipation of the investment that you're going to make in that North Bluff. And then finally planning for what that is and capturing that investment that you've made in terms of the private development that's going to occur on the North Bluff. So all in all, we're probably a decade behind where we are in the South Bluff, but I think we're in a really good position right now to take some steps that will really bear fruit in the coming years, in addition to everything else that's been happening with the North Bluff and the lakefront. And this is really part of that. The strategic plan really called for making some public investments in the lakefront and to market that on a more regional or national scale. In order to do that, you need a good plan. And for the capital CIP for this year, staff advocated for the money to engage a consultant to prepare that public plan. Now, we're not planning the Peter Cooper property. We're not going to that same level of detail. What we're doing is planning that public space. What do we want that to be? It's an amazing opportunity to do some really unique things and to capitalize on the investment that you're already making in terms of the cleanup and bluff stabilization. And I think, as Andrew's put it in occasions, at the end of the day, do you want to spend X on stabilizing a bluff and just walking away and say, okay, we stabilized the bluff, now what? Or do you want to leverage that investment to have a regional park attraction and something that will, again, leverage that in more private investment, much like Lake Vista Park did? Gladly that the council chose the latter. And we are looking to engage Edgewater Resources to do that planning study. Excuse me, Edgewater was one of 4 very talented firms that submitted responses to our RFP, and each one of those firms could have done a great job for us. But when we looked at from a staff perspective, who would be the best fit, and we didn't just do it go by our guts. We applied some analytics to that in terms of scoring each consultant team on project vision and initial concept development, team qualification and experience, proposed methodology and approach, understanding the city's history and the current status of lakefront planning efforts. That was a big one. Timeframe and completion dates, and finally, number 6 is proposed fees and costs. So when all those factors were considered, and we put that to a number of you and a number of staff, sorry, a pretty clear front runner emerged, and that was Edgewater Resources. We felt that they not only did they have familiarity with the city and the processes involved in the North Bluff, but they also showed us a glimpse of what could be. And that was perhaps as important as their prior history. So with that, we made our scoring, we made a recommendation to the Parks and Recreation Commission, and at the meeting last Thursday, they concurred, and they recommended that the council engage Edgewater Resources to prepare the North Bluff planning study. And we're hopeful that the council will concur and that we can move this forward to, again, develop what we all think will be a major regional asset, and something that will leverage that investment is something very special on the Peter Cooper property and the properties that intervene. Happy to answer any questions or if you have any comments.
Questions for Doug?
Can I just add something quick, Mayor?
Yeah.
That's okay. Edgewater, and with the reason we're asking for an additional small amount of buffer, universally, Edgewater was the front runner, and I think 80%, 4 out of 5 of us that reviewed the with the scoring rubric. Many others commented. They didn't have a very well-defined public participation plan, and the timeline was a little condensed to our discomfort. And we think that, and we didn't negotiate, obviously we can't do that in between the award and the submittal and the award, but we thought we would expand upon that public participation and public input and just make sure that they're aware that we do not need a plan for this in 12 weeks. This can take the better part of the end of 2022 to have the right plan, to have the right public participation. We think that they were a little bit influenced by the fact that we know we do need a bluff stability project sooner than later. The clock is ticking on that a little bit, but we can work out those understandings with them in a final proposal. We did ask for an additional bit of money. One of the things that really separated Edgewater was, if you looked in the back of near the back of their proposal, they had a permitting environment matrix. So we want to be bold. We want to be aspirational with these projects. These projects don't need to be something we can build in 2 years. These are 7,500-year assets, multi-generational amenities for the community and the region. We can take some time on this and do it in phases, but they did a permitting matrix, and they said, if you dreamt the coolest thing ever, we have the resources available for you to, say, don't do that because you're never going to get that permitted, or, you know, it's a little challenging and it's a little expensive, but it's doable with all the king's horses and powers that be in the bureaucracy. I really like that because, you know, I think we can dream big, but we also cannot publish a plan that we can't execute in the end. And Edgewater, we believe, has the resources at the shoreline, specifically to help us through, you know, dreams versus realities.
Okay. Andrew, questions, comments?
It's the only comment. What an incredible read that the RFP was, and quite honestly, excited to begin to see some of those ideas that they're going to put forward to us. There's probably one of the biggest questions that I get asked by constituents. You've invested all this money down at the lakefront. When the heck are we going to see something happening down there? And it's actually refreshing to now have something to be able to tell people that the work is now beginning, right? And it has begun, but actually the concept of what it might look like, some of the project photos that they had from some of their past work, amazing. The little pocket beaches that were on there, envisioning those down at the lakefront. I mean, I was just in Florida, and those pocket beaches were on or in several of the state parks that we visited. So it's amazing to see how this group will be able to put a vision or plan that you thought, oh, that's only going to work at an ocean front, but right here at our doorstep at Lake Michigan. So really looking forward to what they're going to come up with. I'm confident it's going to be incredibly exciting. So my 2 cents worth.
Ken?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just looking through that report, Doug, I appreciate the work you did on that RFP proposal. That was well done, I thought. Pretty impressive list of credentials of the principals of the firm, read very well. And the project list that they've been associated with in the past is pretty impressive. So looking forward to some good ideas and some great progress down there. Appreciate it.
No, I concur with all the statements that have been made. Looks like we're headed in the right direction again and again. This is just the first step in what it could be down there. But we have to envision what it may be and then go from there. So kudos to the Parks Department and our staff for narrowing it down and getting us moving. So there's no further discussion. Motion.
Marshall moves to agree with the Parks and Recs Commission and select Edgewater Resources to create a study and plan of redevelopment of public recreational space for the city of Oak Creek, North Bluff in the amount not to exceed $85,000.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 8 is consideration to concur with the mayor's reappointments of the following individuals to the library board, which is a 3-year term, Sharon Armstrong and Joe Meyer. So questions, comments? No? I'd like to thank these 2 individuals. I do call them up, make sure that they do want to stay engaged, and thank them for their service. And they've been long-term board members, and I thank them for that. The city's far better off for their leadership than not having them. So that being said, motion.
You'll move to concur with the mayor's reappointments as listed.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. And 9 is under treasurer, and it's consideration of a resolution rescinding resolution number 117-060617 and restating public depositories for the city of Oak Creek. And Max?
Thank you, Mayor and Common Council. So before you tonight's a resolution that would restate the city of Oak Creek's public depositories. So by Wisconsin statute, we have to have a list of approved public depositories on file. And the reason that we're doing this is really twofold. So First, in December of last year, we were notified by BMO Investment Services that they were going to be ceasing their advisory operations, so their investment management. And what we did at that time is we transferred those assets over to Dana Investment Services. So they've been managing those investments since January of this year. But BMO is still technically the custodian of those funds. And BMO's proposal to continue to be this custodian of those funds is $15,000 a year, which is pretty exorbitant. And it just seems like BMO is trying to exit the investment space, and I don't think they can legally just cease custodial services. So I think what they're doing is probably just trying to charge a very large fee to force some of their former clients to move on to a new custodian. So what we're looking to do is have those funds moved over to Charles Schwab, who would offer custodial services at no cost to the city. And then second, we also have some investments through Ellers Investment Partners, and they were formerly using TD Ameritrade as the custodian. And TD Ameritrade was acquired by Charles Schwab. And when that occurred, it really allowed Ellers personnel to really evaluate the marketplace for both the management and custodial of their portfolio. And they decided to move forward with Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. That firm specializes in municipal investments. So a little bit more niche than, say, what TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab does. So what this resolution does is it would take off TD Bank as well as TD Ameritrade and M&I and BMO as custodians, and then it would add Charles Schwab and Pershing Advisory Solutions LLC as custodians. So with that, happy to answer any questions the Common Council may have.
Questions for Max? Nope, pretty good explanation there. Okay, seeing no discussion, motion please.
Bill will move to approve resolution 12337-062122, rescinding resolution number 11817-060617, rescinding public depositories for the city of Oak Creek.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
And item 10 is the license committee. I'll turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the information on the Common Council report for tonight. Does anybody have any cares, questions, or concerns? All right, seeing none, Kirkowski make a motion to approve the various license requests as listed on the June 21st, 2022 License Committee report.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
And item 11 is to consider a motion to approve the June 15th, 2022 vendor summary report, the amount of $1,120,508.79. So please look over the page in your packet, and if there's any questions, just direct it at the person best able to answer. And when you're satisfied, there's no questions, errors, corrections, discussion, motion.
Bill move to approve the June 15th, 2022 vendor summary report in the amount of $1,120,508.79.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye. Here,
Yes.
let's just thought for you, you want to ask the city attorney if we could re-entertain the approval of minutes of that was previously held, now that Alderman Kirkowski's here,
Oh,
unless you want to just maintain until the next meeting.
Excuse me. I think that the issue that Alderman Gale is referring to is that earlier he did not believe that there was a quorum, so it was held to the next meeting. I mean, it's at the pleasure of the council, I would say, if they wanted to make that motion now. It's rather apparent that we now have Alderman Kirkowski with us. So I don't think it would be improper in terms of the nature of what that is to entertain a motion if the council see fits.
Steve, you were at the meeting, right? The June 7th meeting?
7th? Yeah, I believe, yeah.
Okay.
We'll do it after 12. We'll finish up the vendors.
Yeah, I was here.
Item 12 is consideration of a resolution authorizing the payment of bills, debts, and obligations. Max, just want to give them the Reader's Digest on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we don't have a council meeting that, first week of July, but we do have bills to pay. So what this authorizes us is for, the finance department to pay our bills, and then we'll have 2 vendor summary reports on our July 19th meeting agenda.
Okay. We got that? Okay, motion on 12.
Bill, move to approve resolution 12338-062122, authorizing payment of bills, debts, and obligations.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And now if you'd like to go back on the minutes of 6/7/22. Yes.
Food for thought, council, you may want to consider a motion to reconsider a motion for approval of the minutes of June 7, 2022 as the first step, and then a motion on the approval of the minutes.
Bill, move to reconsider the vote to hold item number 3.
Marshall, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Now we'll need a motion to approve.
Marshall will move to approve the minutes of June 7th, 2022.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Item 13 is consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, to discuss the following. Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub G, to consider the proposed settlement of the city's claim filed against the estate of Thomas J. Junk in Waukesha County, case number 2018 PR 457. B, Section 19.85 Sub 1 Sub G, to consider the proposed settlement in the City of Oak Creek versus Wilhelm Enterprises Corporation et al., Milwaukee County, case number 2020 CV 1730. And C, Section 19.85 Sub 1 Sub E, to consider the proposed term sheet between Ryan Business Park LLC and the City of Oak Creek for approximately 13.936 acres of property located at the corner of 13th and Ryan Road. President Gale?
Thank you, Mayor. Gail moves to convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 to discuss the following. A, Section 19.85 Sub 1 Sub G, to consider a proposed settlement with the city's claim filed against the estate of Thomas W. Junk. B, Section 19.85 Sub 1 Sub G, to consider a proposed settlement to the City of Oak Creek versus Wilhelm Enterprises Corporation et al. C, Section 19.85 Sub 1 Sub E, to consider a proposed term sheet between Ryan Business Park LLC and the City of Oak Creek for approximately 13.936 acres of property located at the corner of 13th Street and Ryan Road.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
We'll now convene into closed session and resume at its conclusion.
What do you want from me? That I should have actually formally abstained from item number 3. That was the whole point of the way we held it to begin with.
consider a motion where you can be in open session. Please tell us. Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Gale.
Aye. Dan.
15 is consideration of any motion to take place from items 13.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail will move to approve the settlement and authorize the mayor to sign the settlement statement and release in the City of Oak Creek versus Wellhome Enterprises Corporation et al. Milwaukee County case number 2020 CB1730.
Marshall seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 16 is consideration of a resolution approving a shared maintenance and access agreement between the City of Oak Creek and F Street OC LV LLC Lakeshore Commons. Andrew?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so before the council this evening is the shared maintenance and access agreement. A little background on what we're attempting to do here. You all have dealt with this in your constituent work. The best laid plans for owner association maintenance and ownership
The first time.
is, it doesn't always work in the end when you have defunct governance out there in those homeowners associations. There's just no monies, or it wasn't ever fully established as it were supposed to in the covenants of that area or on the plat, et cetera. We really wanted to find a vehicle to capture what it is everybody was thinking when Lakeshore Commons was established in terms of which maintenance items are the responsibility of the city, which items are owned by the city, and conversely, which items are the maintenance responsibility of the developer / eventual owners association, and which are owned by those. So I think the best way to go, it also provides for cross access, because there's certain things that we as a city would maintain, certain things the developer would maintain that cross into public and private ownership too. So that's the cross access agreement, shared access agreement part of this. If you just go to the exhibit, I think that sums it up the best, and then I'll hold for any questions as I know it's getting late. I can find the exhibit myself. Yeah, page 1 of the exhibit. So this area is very, very amenity rich by intention. This traditional neighborhood design really only works when you have the density that we do here. Not as much in terms of personal yard space, but you also have swaths and areas of shared common area. And for the most part, what we said was, listen, we don't want a gated community here. If these areas of recreation, of reflection, of whatever, recreation is the best word, are connected to our larger park assets, then we don't want there to be any dispute whether the general public can use them, right? Of course, there's certain areas like the pool house and things like that that'll be more controlled. But certainly these walking areas and more passive recreation, should be really enjoyed by all. We're not going to gate it with a key card to get in. So that was a value to us. But we had to really understand what is likely going to be utilized by the public and what is really more centered on the neighborhood use of the area. And if you look at those areas that are in the middle in yellow, in the heart of this community, that larger blob of yellow is actually basically a neighborhood park with court space and other things to be planned there. And we talked about the amenities plan with the Parks and Recreation Commission. They're like, I don't see anybody driving from the other side of town to come to that park to play pickleball or whatever amenity they have there. So originally we were going to take on that as a neighborhood park and own and maintain it. And as you see, all of the yellow area there is 100% association maintenance and ownership. Where then we got into, okay, well, let's talk about the arterial connectivity that we want on the lakefront, that we want to the Oak Leaf Trail, that we eventually want to the North Bluff and eventually south, connecting with the Oak Leaf Park and into Bender Park, or Oak Leaf Trail and into Bender Park. The peripheral trail system and the appurtenances along the way will be enjoyed and accessible and inviting to the public. So that's where we got into ownership and maintenance responsibilities on that pathway and along the fringe of what is Lake Vista Park. If you see 8 and 5 in the middle of the page there, there's like a hammock park, and a public art installation being planned there. You'll notice that iterations of this plan earlier, there was an amphitheater there, some sort of a shell structure. We really think that if that's going to be part of the lakefront plan, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't, that's probably somewhere where it's very clearly a public element that you can park near and you can walk up to and utilize. So that really does capture, but for the council's benefit, what we're really talking about here is taking on, in terms of ongoing maintenance, taking on plowing of the trail around and up into a little bit this development. You know, we were talking about that. We're like, well, we don't really want to do that. We probably won't do that immediately until there's a critical mass of people out here. But if, you know, when this thing builds out in, 4 or 5, 7 years, whatever the case may be, you know, you're probably approaching 2,000 residents in this area. So we think that, you know, given the usage of that trail all seasons, all months of the year, that, you know, we can take on that responsibility to remove the snow and replace the capital assets when they meet their useful life, like the bollard lighting. In the meantime, however, you'll see certain maintenance responsibilities of the developer, like for instance, the energy costs of the bollard lighting would be, it's like the Emmys saying, "Shut up and get off the stage."
Last call.
You know, they would be responsible for the energy costs. Probably more important to this discussion is really the public and private rights of Lake Key, which is the second page. So as we got into designing this neighborhood, this community, we realized that with traditional neighborhood design, a lot of deployment of alleyways and private access driveways and things the city wanted no part of owning or no part of maintaining. So that second piece denotes, you know, in 12 years, while we're getting asked the question from the HOA president, can't you just go around the corner a little bit here and, you know, maintain these string of, I don't know, say medians? Does that ring a bell? No, this is, you can make a different policy decision, or that council can make a different policy decision later, but this is kind of our key to go back to and say, no, it was never intended that we would be owning or maintaining that alleyway or that circuit of streetlights, et cetera. So that's probably more critical from a cost standpoint than the first page of the exhibit, but just wanted to draw, this was really the impetus for this. And then we were like, well, let's add the public amenities to that piece too. So with that, we're trying to cast in stone what the agreement was way back when and make sure that that's part of the record and archived. But that can be changed and re-examined over time. But this is what the parties have agreed to at the beginning of the development.
Andrew, street lighting, there's ours.
So on the private and public right-of-way key, which is page 2, anything you see in that salmon color is public right-of-way. So all traditional features of the right-of-way would be maintained by the city, as is other typical subdivisions. Where you see it in the green, I don't know what, probably not all, but certain of those areas certainly have street lighting treatment. That would be 100% their ownership, maintenance, and cost for energy. Knockdowns, et cetera, on a street light per se, or a street tree, that would be all the association's maintenance. It's also a fair trade between balancing, okay, what, given the scope of this project, what association would reasonably be able to control and maintain and afford via their fees without those being exorbitant versus, you know, what makes sense for the city to own and maintain, and as is customary in a newly subdivided area.
And then the recreation stuff, the picnic tables, hammocks, all that, that's theirs.
Certain areas that are adjacent to the park, Mayor, like the area by the public art installation and the hammock park, where you're walking past that on the trail on Lake Vista and you don't live there and you see that and think you want to go enjoy that, although it's a little closer to the A9 block of buildings, we've agreed to take responsibility for that. But other areas like garbage and garbage collection, litter, landscaping of medians and planters and things like that that are in that middle yellow row, 100% responsibility of the homeowners association eventually.
Of the shared maintenance agreement that the developer, you know, she's, can you give us a little bit more, anything that would lessen their overall expense? And did they give you any idea as to, you know, you mentioned about these amenities is gonna, to the point of it not being affordable, that's already happened with the homes there. So, I mean, they're comfortable with the shared maintenance agreement? They feel it's workable?
You know, we worked, you know, of course, they're always looking out for their interests, financial or other. We talked with, Matt Trebetoski and Jeff Went at DPW. We talked with engineering. Everything that they didn't think made a ton of sense for us, we kind of put that back to the developer as feedback, and there wasn't a ton of, you know, hey, well, you know, this is going to put us over the top or something like that. So it was a very fair, you know, what makes the most sense, what's going to be convenient for either that party or us as a city to maintain. It was a pretty good give and take to come to the right product.
Yeah, Ken.
Andrew, I got two things, and mostly looking at this, and you can tell me if maybe I didn't read it. There's 2 points where they specifically call out where the developer benefits if the city fails to act, but there's no call outs if what we can do if the developer fails to act. One's on point 4, and the other's 4.2. I'm just wondering if we have remedies in case one of those happens where in fact they're responsible for some kind of financial damage that we would bear the brunt of.
So as you know, this was a little bit of a rush, given there's no council meeting on July 5th or 6th or whatever that is. 2.4 is definitely the subject of some further revisions in favor of the city. I know that there's already been some softening of that language, but the resolution reflects changes approved by council and the city administrator that are not substantively different of the intent of your decision this evening. So we will certainly, I know those are in the queue to be discussed, and ironed out a little bit, but we'll certainly look at both of those sections for.
Granted your discretion at that. And, I know it's a little more obscure, 4.2 is a little more obscure, but we do see time to time where folks damage city property. Is there a method or methodology to make sure that if it's a resident there, that they're financially liable for that? I don't know.
No, I think it's just, as long as the city isn't liable, I don't know that we would.
Well, it's really called out
determine what the other parties.
where the city is liable, but it doesn't call out where, in fact, the developer or the residents are. So
Okay.
kind of, nope, it's a little more gray zone than some, but.
Mayor. So Alderman Gale, I don't mean to go too deeply on it, but in terms of what you're thinking, is it sort of, you know, skateboarding on a city?
What if they dig a hole in the
piece of-
ground where they're not supposed to and or they, they break some public,
Capital asset or a
Capital
fixture that we're responsible for?
yeah,
Sure. I mean, I think to Andrew's point, this is,
run the car over some park benches and stuff like that, that are city maintained and city owned or.
sure. And my initial thought was, certainly we have our remedies under criminal statutes and local ordinances in terms of damage, criminal damage to property, things of that nature. I wasn't sure if that might be where you're going.
No, my point was, it was called out specifically where the city was liable, but it was not in the reverse.
Understood. And I don't mean to editorialize, but I guess I would say this is really unusual, like Andrew said. I mean, I think we're trying to anticipate, we can't prevent those responsibility issues, but I think that as representatives of your respective districts, we're always running into the issues of, isn't this city-owned property? Doesn't the city maintain this? And I think that there's certainly those pieces here where with the developer, there's been a really good intent and negotiation on Andrew's part to try to encapsulate that. We're not going to cover everything, and it's going to need to come back for some amendments, probably,
Well, they're never gonna favor the city if they're coming back for amendments, but.
Well, and where I was going with that was, at the end of the day, we are not leaving this to be private development. This is not going to be a piece where, the homeowners association that goes defunct, that it isn't the city's responsibility, because we know that those are the calls that you get, and we're trying to anticipate it. So I think that my point is that the flip side is, that is part of the association responsibility, but we'll certainly explore that.
I'm good otherwise, so. Oh, you guys, Steve?
Good.
Guzzi?
Great. Okay. If there is no further discussion, motion on 16, please.
Marshall moves to adopt resolution 12340-062122, a resolution approving the shared maintenance and access agreement between the city of Oak Creek and F Street OCLV LLC.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Okay, that will get us to adjournment. So, motion to adjourn.
Got the 4th of July parade in here in the meantime, since we meet again, so.
Yeah, we'll have 4th of July on the 4th of July. Obviously, 10 a.m., as normal.
Matt, will the road be done?
So,
Did you? There you go.
one other thing worth mentioning, we will have an art installation of the American flag at Drexel Town Square. We'll unveil it 11 a.m. July the 2nd at the Farmers Market. It was graciously donated by the Gruno Company. And we kicked off our flag tour. So if you come to Town Square, you can take an educational flag walk with the banners. That was all donated by Eater Flag. And special thanks to the library for setting that tour up in DPW. So
What time is that?
probably 11. Got to double check with the market, but I think 11, and see when Gruno can make it. All right, anything else? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Marshall moves to adjourn.
Guzekowski second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Kirkowski.